So let us continue along. So what we want to do now is we want to go through and we want to figure out how many sigma bonds, how many electron clouds, and how many pi bonds are in each one of these. Remember, the sigma bond was the first bond that forms between, then everything else that forms is going to be a pi, and of course the clouds are going to be those extra electrons. So let's go through here, and this would have had 4 sigma bonds. And how many clouds? There's no clouds. And how many pi bonds? Now this one had no double bonds. Remember, pi bonds are going to be a double bond. If it had a triple bond, it would have 2 pi bonds. So this has no pi bonds going on. And so take a second and see if you can answer for the rest of those, and then we're going to come back and do something with each of those. So pause the video and then see if you can get those right. So let's see how you did. On carbonate, you should have had 3 sigma, 0 clouds, and then 1 pi. For NH3, there are 3 sigmas and 1 cloud. On the O3, there are 2 sigma, 1 cloud, and 1 pi. And for the POCl3, 4 sigma, 0 clouds, 0 pi. Then there's 4 sigma, 2 clouds, 0 pi. 2 sigma, 2 clouds, and 0 pi. So hopefully you did well on that. And so that is really the key to figure out the molecular geometry and the geometric shape. And so I have given you a handout. Let me go back to the front page here. So I've given you a handout, and you will memorize these shapes and you will memorize these names. But we're going to look at these, what's called a domain. So domain is how many spots are occupied by electrons. And so on here, this is going to always be your sigma and your clouds. Your pi's actually occupy the same spot. So we're going to be looking at what I've done in blue here. And so total number of spots. So there are a total number of spots that are occupied. So total. So 4 total, and then we're going to talk about out of that total how many are occupied by clouds, and there are no clouds. So I'm going to call this a 4-0. We're going to go to the drawing here in just a second and talk about what this means, but this is going to be a way for you to start memorizing names and memorizing shapes. So on this one, the total is 3. And there are no clouds. So this is what I call a 3-0. Now on this one, the total number of spots occupied, 1, 2, 3, 4 spots around. So this is the total, which is your sigma and clouds together. And then out of those totals, there's just 1 cloud. So this is going to be called a 4-1. I know it looks like 3-1, but the number is 4 and then clouds. And so we're going to be doing something with that. Let's go ahead and do that for the rest of them. And so we just did this one, and that was going to be that 4-1. So this one, the total is 3, and of that 3, one of them is a cloud. And then the total here is 4, and there are no clouds. I'm not looking at pi's at all. Of course, these others don't have pi's. So here's our total. Our total is 6, so it's in the shape of something that has 6 things around it. But 2 of those are occupied by clouds. And the total here, what we call the total domain here, is 4, and of those 4, 2 of them are clouds. This is going to be a way to help you memorize the name. Okay, so and that's going to help you figure out the shapes. So let me show you on this page. So you should have this page, and you will end up memorizing it. And so there's going to be another video that I'm going to do, and I'm just going to draw these 2D structures in for you. So please watch that video. If you're really good at drawing, and I know some of you are, you'll be able to draw the 3D structures no problem. But if you're like me, you're going to need to do the 2D. All right, so the number that I've been doing, that 4 0 or 4, 1, or is here. This is the number of domains, number of electron groups. And so that's what we're going to look at first. So our first one is a 4, and we had a 4. So it's going to be some sort of tetrahedral shape. So tetrahedral looks kind of like a tripod. It has one thing up and 3 things down. And so it's going to have a generic drawing of a tetrahedral. That first one was no clouds. This number of lone pairs is clouds. So we call this a 4, 0. So this is technically a tetrahedral. I'm not going to make you guys write the name twice, so I'm going to have you just write this name for me, the molecular geometry name. But on the app, it makes you put tetrahedral. Okay, and then we're going to draw it in this tripod look. So the way I draw the tripod thing, I make it look like a chicken foot. So we're going to go back over to the other. If you're good at drawing, and I do know some of you are, you'll draw this 3D drawing here, and you're welcome to draw that. But in the bubbles, you will actually, instead of circles, you will be putting the elements. So let's go back to that other page. So the way I would draw this one is carbon would go in the middle, and you're going to have one element up, which is bromine. And on this redraw, you do not have to put the electrons around. On the app, you do. Now, those of you that might go straight from here to the drawing itself, and you're not doing the rough draft, you have to put the electrons on. So I'm just not making you put the electrons on because you've already done it here. So we would have 3 things down, and I'm not going to make you do the 3D drawing where you draw the wedges and things. Those of you that go on to organic will do that. So bromine will go down like this. And so it looks something like that, this being a 3D structure. A coworker of mine, we always called it a chicken foot, one thing up and 3 things down because of what it looks like. And the name of this would be tetrahedral. Alright, so this next one we said was 3, has 3 domains and no clouds on it. So if I go back to my page, you can see 3, we said trigonal planar with no clouds is going to be also a trigonal planar. I'm okay that you guys just write trigonal planar. And you can see that all the angles are the same at 120. So it basically makes a triangle, and it's a flat triangle, which is why it's called planar. And so we'll go back to our page. So this will have carbon in the middle, and you can put 1 thing up and 2 things down, or 2 things up and 1 thing down. It doesn't matter, but I should see a triangle. But we do include that pi bond in there. So we do draw that pi bond, even though it doesn't affect the shape. So there's our shape. Can you see the triangle? We do put brackets around this and the charge, and that's only because it was an ion. So this is trigonal planar. Technically it's trigonal planar. But we'll talk about how to work with your app in class. So on this one, this is a 4, 1. If we go back, and hopefully you're looking in that sheet. So we'll go back and look at that sheet. So this is a 4, which is a tetrahedral, but this has 1 cloud. So it still has that basic shape of 1 thing up and 3 things down. The difference is one of those things has been replaced by a cloud. And so you would draw it with the elements coming down with a cloud on top. And it's basically a triangular base pyramid, which is why it's called trigonal pyramidal. And so let's draw that one. So we will draw a nitrogen down, and we will draw those 3 hydrogens, making that chicken foot looking thing. But instead of an element being up here, it is going to be the cloud, and this is trigonal pyramidal. And we will have a lab that will practice this, naming and everything. All right, let's look at that next one. So I would like you to see if you could figure out what the shape would be, and then come back to the video. I'm going to fill these in, and then I want you to watch the next video on me working on the shapes. Alright, let's check and see how you did. So this was the 3-1. So this would have been, it is bent. You do have two different bents. You've got a 3-1 and a 4-2. So one is a trigonal planar bent and one is a tetrahedral bent. So I would like you to distinguish between those. So these are both bent, and the reason is the elements want to be in a straight line in this case, but that cloud is actually bending it, so it can't be at a 180 degree. So this one should have been a trigonal planar bend. You should have drawn the pi bond on it. And then this one is another just tetrahedral, the 1 up and 3 down. This one is called a square planar because the elements make a nice square, and then you have electrons on top and bottom. And then this one would have been a tetrahedral bent. It is, the elements do get bent. There's that chicken foot looking thing, but the elements end up bending the elements, the clouds end up bending the elements closer together. All right, so please see me on the next video. We're going to talk about how I would kind of like you to draw these 2D if you're not able to draw 3D. And then in class, we're going to do bond order, polarity, and hybridization together. So see you on the next video.